This is TVO, Channel 18 in Peterborough, Channel 49 in Tobermory.
Hello, I'm Enrico Gruen, and welcome to Second Nature. The University of Colorado recently spent $10 million. Be gone, fool! This is my channel now! Mine! Mine, you pitiable prisoner of gravity! Yes, I control this channel now, and soon I will control the world! If I say we will talk about villains, then we will talk about villains. If I say hit it, Nancy, then Nancy will hit it! Hit it! Oh, come on, Nancy, hit it. Just push the button. Come on, Nancy.
Rising anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe has voted English only sign. 40,000 tons of armed with PCBs blew up the ozone layer today.
Standing by for solid rocket booster separation.
You talking to me? You must be talking to me because there ain't nobody else up here. You talking to me? Ah, yes, villains. I was rereading Frankenstein this week and I got to wondering, who's the villain of the story? Is it Dr. Frankenstein, his monster, the angry mob of peasants? Anyway, Frankenstein was written by Mary Shelley. Her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, was an early feminist who wrote some insightful thoughts on villains. No man chooses evil because it is evil. He only mistakes it for happiness, the good he seeks. And also, the same energy of character which renders a man a daring villain would have rendered him useful to society had that society been well organized. Sounds like a lot of the best comic book villains. So let's start with comics. Perhaps the first and clearest comic bad guys were penned by Chester Gould, hoodlums and crooks like Flat Top Jones, Mumbles, Prune Face, and The Blank.
Dick Tracy's a very significant comic strip because it really ushers in to a form that had been dominated by humor, the continuity strip, more specifically the adventure strip. The villains remind us of the kinds of villains that are prowling the real urban streets. In the 30s, the villains reminded us of Al Capone and Legs Diamond, and also outlaws, not just gangsters, but outlaws like Bonnie and Clyde and Dillinger. And as the years have progressed, the crimes remain topical and remind us of the kind of crimes, and remember we're in a newspaper, that we're seeing elsewhere in the newspaper.
My friend Control wired me up some interviews he taped at a comic convention, and I've edited together a little montage about villains, sort of the best of the best on the best of the worst.
I think what makes a great villain for a character like Batman or for any other character is a villain who really tests the hero.
Villains that your hero comes up against defines the power of your hero. You know, you put a hero against a wimpy villain and you got a wimpy hero. You don't know what your guy can do unless you test him. So you need some really powerful dudes to come up against Superman. I mean, that's the problem, is finding somebody that's powerful enough in one way or another.
There are a lot of goofy kind of villains I like from being a kid. You know, the absorbing man, a pointed-headed guy with ears sticking out and a big wrecking ball. To me, that's a great Thor villain. Captain America, Joe America, the Red Skull, a Nazi villain. I mean, that's the greatest. For different characters, I think there's different great villains.
Do you have a favorite villain?
In all the whole universe, in every, oh gosh, Darkseid. He's the best villain ever created.
What makes him so great?
Because he's virtually omniscient, as omniscient as he has to be. extremely powerful, really smart, and he has a very strong point of view. He knows what he wants, and he goes after it without remorse or any holding back at all. He just takes what he wants, and that's what you need. I think the two things that make a villain are that remorselessness and a very strong point of view. He wants, he needs, he got to have whatever it is that he wants.
To be perfectly honest, the villains I like are the ones that are most fun to draw. Red Skull's got a red skull head. Let me draw him.
Enough said. If you want to send me tapes or mail, send them here to my friends on Earth. They can forward my mail electronically. Now, to get an overview of the supervillain scene, let's talk with Fabian Nicieza, an editor at Marvel Comics. Fabian, it's Commander Rick. What makes a supervillain really super?
Motivation. I honestly believe that motivation makes for a great comic book villain. If the villain does not have a strong enough motivation or a good enough conflict of motivation, then you're just dealing with someone who shoots blasts out of his hands or punches people real hard. And a good motivation in a villain creates even more interesting conflict from your main characters. Because if your villain may possibly have some right on his side, you know, some kernel of truth to what he does, that makes your heroes question what they're doing, you know, to him or against him or whatever.
So can you give me an example of a well-motivated villain?
I've always felt Dr. Doom in Marvel Comics was a very well-motivated villain. I always felt that Lex Luthor in the original Superman, you know, in the 60s and things like that, wasn't well-motivated. When I found out that Lex Luthor hated Superman because, you know, Superman blew his hair off, I found that motivation to be very weak for someone who's supposed to be such a major villain. I do like that they have realized that, and they have re-motivated Lex Luthor now. I mean, Dr. Doom always had very strong motivations, be it to help his people and his country, or to try to find a way to help his mother, who we won't even get into, is the spiritual limbo and all this stuff.
See you later, Fabian. Hard to imagine Dr. Doom or Red Skull going, what's my motivation? But what makes a villain is not just what they want, it's how they go about getting it. A guy says, I just want a job, a house, and a family. Fine. What makes him bad is that he wants your job, your house, and your family. The hero and the villain are flip sides of the same coin.
Luke, I'm your father.
Now, in science fiction, that might be a problem because it's been said that in SF, the hero is the idea. Dr. Benford, it's Commander Rick. If the hero in science fiction is the idea, who's the villain?
I don't quite agree that idea is hero all the time, but it often is. And therefore, if the idea is the hero, clearly the villain is ignorance. And most science fiction stories, a lot of them anyway, are about ignorance or preconceptions or intellectual rigidity getting in the way of true human concerns.
Can you give me an example off the top of your head?
Isaac Asimov's Nightfall is about the fact that if you had a planet in which let's say it had, 7 suns, and so there was always a sun in the sky, and you never saw the stars. When an eclipse came once every 2,000 years, and you could see the stars, that this opening of frontiers, this blowing away of the human horizons, would so terrify everybody that their response would be chaos, rioting, burn all the houses, and so forth. In other words, an emotional reaction to an intellectual event. That's the crucial structure of many science fiction short stories. It says, don't look upon a new idea as an enemy. And to do so is wrong.
I think villains are the problem with science fiction. It's very easy to outfit a bunch of Hitlers in outer space, the guys with the black hats, and there they are, those are the villains. This almost never produces good fiction. Because what you have to remember is that villains have their own motivations and they are justified in their own eyes. Hitler was justified in his own eyes. If you can create villains with that kind of complexity, who believe in what they're doing, and nonetheless show that it is villainous, you've created something far better than if you merely add one more thundering horde of people in black hats or yellow skins or whatever happens to be the current villainous group. We don't do that enough, but we do it more than we used to.